Hey, this is the Pizza here, and this is going to be one of my more professional videos. I'm going to be doing a review of Runes of Magic. I've played the game for about a year and a half now, so I feel that I've experienced it for a long enough time to be able to have a good grasp of the concepts and give a good review. So I've even got some notes out just to keep me on track and make sure I don't miss any key points. So the first thing is Runes of Magic has a good number of skills. You can see I opened up my skill menu right here, and I'm going through all this different skills. And between the main class skills, the secondary class skills, and then the skills that can be shared between the two, there's a decent number of skills you can use in the game. And the way you level up your skills is through the talent points, and each skill, the max level, is the max level of your character. So there's enough skills to keep you busy, and enough skills to keep your talent points pretty much always drained after about level 5 or 6 or so. But unfortunately, you won't really get to using many of those skills. The combat system in Runes of Magic can be very repetitive. If you'll notice in my skill bar, I have 4 skills right now that are active skills. The one in slot 1 is my basic attack, and the one in the last slot is my return to town spell. The only skills I'm really going to use are the ones in slot 3, 4, and 5. And I'll get back to that a little bit later. So here you can see that Runes of Magic has a very large map. There are quite a few areas. Some of them are better than others. Dust Devil Canyon, for many people, is probably the least impressive area of them all, and everyone just is always waiting to get out of there. But for the most part, the area design is pretty good. There's not too much variation within the areas, but between each area, there's a lot of variation. You know, it goes from volcano to grassy forest with elves and stuff. And so, another thing I wanted to point out is some of the animations can look a little stiff. Now, this isn't a big point, mind you. It's a small thing, but some of the animations can look a little bit stiff. Like the running just looks a little bit awkward, not much, and if you don't really pay attention to it, you can't tell. But yeah, it just looks a little awkward, and I'm going to give a comparison later in the video. So Runes of Magic also has a fully fleshed out economic system with the auction house and the diamonds and rubies and furious tokens. There's so much stuff you can buy and sell in the game, and it works pretty well. And this leads me to another good point about the game: add-on support. Right now, one thing that really improves the auction house is Advanced Auction House, and the add-on support for this game is great. It basically adds in every feature or improves a feature that you feel may not have been great. You can pretty much get an add-on for almost anything you want. So that really helps to build upon the game and let you customize the game to what you want. Because if you don't like the default UI, then just go download a new one. And it also has a looking for party system. However, as you'll see right here, nobody uses it. Literally, nobody uses it. Yep, that's kind of depressing. I did use it once, and I got into a party. So, if you do use it, you can get into a party, but for the most part, no one uses it. And that also leads me to one more point. Actually, I think it's about to... Nope. Leads me to another point. And here I'm showing the item shop. The lower levels for some of the instances, like Necropolis of Mirrors, I just forgot the name of it, Mystic Altar, there are definitely not a lot of people running those instances. You can spend 30-45 minutes just looking and looking and looking for a party to run those instances, but you just can't find people. And that's kind of... It's really bad to have it at that low level, because that'll turn people off from the game. Because let's say you just got to level 25 and are like, yeah, let's go run some Forsaken Abbey. And usually Forsaken Abbey is actually the most populated of the early instances. But then nobody will be running it, and it's like, alright, I guess I'll just put that quest to the side, and you never end up doing it. So here I'm showing some of the item shop stuff, and one thing about the item shop is some of the stuff does give a couple players, some of the items do give players a pretty big advantage, like the weapon drillers and armor drillers, which add ruby slots, which allow you to add even more stats to your weapons and armor. And that's another thing, is this is the good and a bad point depending on how you want to look at it. The gear customization in this game is very deep. You can add any stat off of any piece of gear and slap it on another one, and just completely customize your gear with all the stats that you want. Now, that's very good for the people who are able to get those stats and spend the time getting them, and also have the transmuter charges to put them on the gear they want. But as was the case for me, I couldn't find the time. Well, not so much the time, but when I got to the higher levels, and I noticed all these people with this just amazing stats on their gear, and I still had the basic 1 or 2 stats on each piece of gear, I fell horribly behind, and this is where that whole lack of support for lower levels came in. When I tried to run instances to get those pieces of gear, I could never find a party, no matter how hard I tried. So, the gear customization can be very good and does allow you to personalize your character, but at the same time, it can create very imbalanced characters. And I'm just about to get to a clip where I show that. So some of the quests can also be very repetitive. For the most part, the quests in this game are kill a certain number of enemy, or kill a certain number of enemy and collect whatever drops from them. So here you see, I just got straight out of the teleporter to Ravenfell, and first guy I saw, I believe he was a mage/priest, and look at that gear. Look at all those stats. And I'm not sure if you can read them, but for the most part, they're all stamina, intelligence, and wisdom. Now, of course, those are the stats he wants, but having that much just makes one character far too powerful, and it completely ruins the balance of the classes. And you can do that for any class as well. You can just stack the certain stats you want to the extreme, as right here's another example I found when I went into town. I believe level 59, if I'm not mistaken. And this person also has weapon drillers and armor drillers on almost every single piece of gear, including the wings, which by the way are item shop items, so if you don't want to spend money on the game, kinda out of luck there. Well, you can buy diamonds, but they usually go for about anywhere from 8 to 10k gold each, and wings can be very expensive. So there's also the pet system, which I actually haven't seen anybody with their pet out since it was released. Excuse me. That kinda didn't really come into play too much. Despite the repetitive nature of the quests, there are always plenty of quests for you to get. And here's some of the things that some of the little things that can really get to you. Like right here in Ravenfell. This really annoyed me throughout this entire zone, so I just wanted to point it out. Whenever you run through the leaves on one of those plants, this camera zooms straight up to the back of your character. Not this plant, but there it is. And it may seem like a very little thing, but you do notice it, and you think, gee, why can't they just have the camera stay out behind me? And it's, it's a very small annoyance, but it's just, just a little something that can kind of puts you out of the game, especially if you're in like getting chased by a monster and you run into one of those leaves and you're like, ah crap, now I can't see the monster behind me. Don't know if he's attacking me, don't know if he's trying to, you know, cast a magic attack or whatever. And so once again I'm showing that you can kill pretty much anything with only 3 or 4 skills. I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but the interesting areas, the combat system, even though it is repetitive, it's a decent combat system. And now here I'm pulling out the skills that I would really use. Essence of Magic, of course, to buff my magic attacks. And then Lightning, Fireball, and forgot the name of the last one. Oh well. And one of the most important things to consider when hearing this review is that this game is free. So despite all the negative things I've said, it's a free game. So if you don't like it, you can just stop playing with no loss other than the time you put into it, which if you're not enjoying it, then you'd stop playing. And I'm assuming if you are playing, you're enjoying it, so the time you spent was well placed. So overall, this game is, it's a highly above average free MMORPG. If you look for other free MMORPGs, they will typically be much worse than this. The combat will be repetitive after only 45 minutes or so, rather than, you know, 45 levels. Excuse me. Probably edit out that cough. And like I said, it's very good, and if you can keep up with the stats and with the gear and stay with the curve and be able to find all the parties you need for the lower level instances, then you are golden. Now here's a little comparison I was doing. So there's this other game I've recently been trying out called All Odds Online, and to be fair, I compared a human mage to a human mage. So I'm just showing some of the differences in some of the animations and some of the spells. Now some of the mage spells, like Lightning, you cast it, it's an insta-cast that freezes your enemy for, at my level, roughly 10 seconds. That's more than enough time to kill them outright. So the equivalent of that for a low level here, I'm not sure about the higher level skill, so that may make this a little skewed. But the equivalent of that would be this spell right here, which is not insta-cast and takes time to cast, and the enemy is alerted as soon as you cast it, so they can, you know, run at you, and if you are hit while casting it, you're interrupted and it doesn't take effect. And you can get interrupted out of any of these spells, by the way. And I'm also showing some of the differences in the animations. Now, if you just carefully watch the running animation, it looks a little bit more natural, and it's just one of those small, once again, one of those small details that you start to notice over time. And so there you see I accidentally interrupted the Ice Blast. That was my fault completely. And the most powerful spell I have right now, I just created this character purely for the purposes of reviewing a mage to a mage. But I'm actually enjoying this character a little bit, might play on him. So the most powerful spell I have right now is Meteor, and it can do quite a lot of damage. You saw me use it before. It was that AoE spell, but it has a 5-second cast time, and that is more than enough time for an enemy to kill you. And if you see right here, didn't even do that much damage to the deer. So as you can see, it's taking me a little bit longer to kill an enemy 1 or 2 levels below me as I was killing with my other mage. So that's it for my review of Runes of Magic and a little peek into the future. Till next time.